What's going on, everybody? This is Boxingwave, and we are back with another fight breakdown. All right. This Friday, February 14th, Valentine's Day, not Saturday. All right. We have a top ranked card on ESPN. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern here in New York. Thought about going to this fight, but I really want to be here live. It's a lot of fights on this card, a lot of up and coming stars is going to be on this card. Typical top ranked fashion, Jared Anderson, uh, Xander Zayas, Nico Ali Walsh, all of these guys are going to be on this card. All right. And I will be here as early as possible to cover the card. Okay. But Denys Berinchyk, who's the WBO lightweight champion, he's going to be facing off against Keyshawn Davis. All right. One of the former top prospects of this sport. You know, he's prospect of the year probably a couple years ago, but he's finally getting his title shot. Okay. And this is going to be a pretty good fight. You know, I did a lot of time watching film for this fight. I know Denys is not well known, you know, especially because he's a Ukrainian fighter, and he's from the class of Lomachenko and Alexander Bozdik and Alexander Usyk. All right, he is a Ukrainian Olympic silver medalist back in 2012 when the rest of them won their titles. So he's from that class, but he's probably the least known guy out of all of them. He won his WBO title in his very last fight against Emmanuel Navarrete for a vacant title. Okay, and he's very experienced. You know, this guy got 350 over 350 fights in the amateurs. You know what I mean? He's a very experienced fighter, and so is Keyshawn. Keyshawn is a very experienced amateur as well. But not nearly as much experience as Denys Berinchyk. You know, Berinchyk is 36 years old. He comes in this fight with 19 wins, with 9 knockouts, 0 losses, 0 draws. Okay. And Keyshawn, you know, he's much younger, 25 years old, with 12 wins, 8 by knockout, no losses, no draws. Okay. So they both Olympic medal winners here. Berinchyk, you know, being in the class of like a Lomachenko, for example, didn't go pro as early as Loma. He went pro a couple years later. Didn't really get much hype. Didn't really get much recognition over the years. He's kind of been silent over the years, but he's done enough to become a champion here. Now he's a major player at 135. Um, so what I want to really do is, like I normally do in my breakdowns, being that not many people know much of him. I do think that this is Keyshawn's biggest test. Obviously, it's the most important fight because it's a title fight, and this was going to be the first time he's getting a title fight in just 12 fights. You know, but all of these guys that are amateurs, you know, Olympic gold medals and or Olympic medal winners, you know, or amateurs that had a lot of fights. These guys are going to get title shots usually within sometimes within 10 fights or within 20 fights, 15, 20 fights, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of experience going into this fight, but when it comes to Denys Berinchyk, again, a lot of amateur fights, and he has that same style that we've seen with Lomachenko, with Volstik, and with Usyk. You know, and when I speak on that, I mean the movement. You know, you know that that Eastern European style, but at the elite level. You know, and I know he doesn't have a big name, but look at him fighting as similar styles than those guys. You know, there's a lot. He's a very technical fighter. He's a tactician, and what he does is his style is really to take your strengths and your momentum away from you. You know, and if you watch the Emmanuel Navarrete fight, who's always been very unorthodox, very powerful, high volume puncher, big puncher at that, and those punches from these awkward angles. Denny's style is very similar, but in a more technical way. You know, a much technical way. Denny's could switch. You know, he can switch. He can fight full rounds as a southpaw. He is a southpaw, but he could fight full rounds as a righty. You know, and then he's also have all these different angles. He's big at shifting his body from side to side, you know, slipping punches, coming in, throwing combinations in and out. He has that bounce. He has quick legs, great reflexes. He's definitely a very technical fighter, not a big puncher, but great timing, and he's good at smothering his opponent's offense, and I think that's a key thing. And you see it in that Navarrete fight. I watched I watched the Navarrete fight again. I watched the Artem Lobo fight, which was a this was a bare knuckle fight, and most of these guys that's actively fighting, they don't really get engaged in those kind of fights until after they retire. Austin Trout is having a lot of success with it. I see Paulie Malignaggi also got involved with it, but he's already done that, and um you can't sleep with it. I say he's a technician and all that, but he has dog in him. He likes to exchange from time to time in his fights too. So it's not like he's just a super defensive fighter. He could fight that way, but there are periods where he likes to be in a pocket a little bit and exchange with you. And in order to beat Emmanuel Navarrete, he had to do that. He kept Navarrete off balance. And just his movement and his fainting. And his bouncing and just being in and out. I think he forced Navarrete to lunge in that time and throw punches from too far out, trying to time Berinchyk. And Berinchyk used those opportunities to counter him a lot. And that's what he does well. And also, he knows how to just charge in, but cautiously, and smother your offense and exit throwing punches on his way out. It's hard to really time the guy. He's very tricky. And the amount of feints he do and the shifting his body side to side, you know what I mean? And he's always exiting like laterally. He moves very well, so he's good at turning his opponents, especially the really flat footed ones. The fighters that's not great at pivoting and following him. Keyshawn has great legs. He moves very well, but he's a lot more flat footed than Berinchyk, who has that quick bounce to his style. You know what I mean? So that could be troublesome for Keyshawn a little bit, but we'll see Friday night. We'll see. But Berinchyk, I watched his fights again. I watched the Ivan Mindy fight because Mindy, I'm a little familiar with him. I saw his fights with Luke Campbell back in the day. Much older guy, not much of a threat to Berinchyk, but I watched that fight, and I also watched the Anthony Yiggett fight simply because that's a common opponent between Keyshawn and Berinchyk. Yiggett was also a southpaw, and I remember going to the Yiggett fight with Keyshawn. It was out in Jersey. I think me and my dad went to that fight. This is when Shakur Stevenson fought Yoshino, okay, out in Newark, and we watched that fight live, and Um, Keyshawn handled himself. He was definitely more aggressive. I think he did the better work against Jiggett. But that doesn't necessarily mean they both beat him. I just think Keyshawn did a little better, but Keyshawn probably had a better style for a guy like Anthony Yiggett. So I don't base everything off common opponents, but it's definitely something to look at when comparing the two. Keyshawn is a righty. He's an orthodox fighter, so it's a little different in his approach in that fight. But I think Berinchyk has some things, some tools there with the experience that he has that can give Keyshawn trouble. I don't think Keyshawn's fought anyone that's like him. I think the closest thing that Keyshawn has faced to a Berinchyk is probably Giggit style because he's a southpaw, and he's kind of quick. He is kind of light footed. I think that's a similar style, but I would say Pedraza was very similar, but Pedraza at that point, very old. That's a recent fight. Older, drained down to 135. Wasn't powerful, no longer durable. He only gave Keyshawn a good first round. Outside of that, very similar though. Very similar in the way that Berinchyks approaches. Just the bouncing, coming in, shifting his body left and right, switching from southpaw to righty. I think I think Pedraza was the only guy that fight similar, but again, it was only one good round. I think after that he got burnt out by the end of the second round, and Keyshawn just took over after that. So going into this fight, Keyshawn, we've seen a lot of him. Very good boxer, puncher, very good technical fighter as well. Good counter puncher, good body work, great body work, perfectly placed punches. All about timing. Puncher, but I wouldn't say like I wouldn't call him a KO artist. He's just beating you up type of fighter. It's kind of like even Crawford being a big puncher and he's knocked out like a lot of guys. He went on a long streak of knocking out opponents. He is a big puncher, but he's outboxing you and he's beating you up and he's waiting for the right punch. It's not like he's rushing. He normally doesn't just rush the knockout. Tank is like a one punch knockout artist to me. You know what I mean? Whereas Keyshawn is thoroughly breaking you down. And he's similar to Bud in my opinion. I think he's very similar. I think outside of him not being a southpaw and him not switching like Bud, I think that's the only difference. But I think he is defensively good. I think he's a very smart, intelligent fighter. I think he does. I think he's well rounded. And he's gonna show you the dog in him, but he's gonna be very tactical at the same time. You know, doesn't make too many mistakes in there. He's not overly defensive. Shakur is very defensive. He's defensive first, whereas Keyshawn is more. He's more willing to engage. You know what I mean? I don't think he's really that afraid to get hit. And sometimes it could be a problem because sometimes he's been dominant in a lot of fights, and I think he falls asleep sometimes. I think sometimes he's not respecting his opponent enough to where he is, walk into a shot like the Yiga fight. I was watching some of the Yiga fight where there are certain exchanges where he just walks in with his hands down and he gets clunked over the head with a shot. But he fought Lemos in his last fight, and this was supposed to be his most dangerous opponent because Lemos came in extremely overweight. It was supposed to be a lightweight fight, but Lemos came in overweight. He did great against Richardson Hitchens in that fight, almost won. And Keyshawn made short work of him, very quickly got him out of there like it was nothing. And but that's a different fight, because Berinchyk, much more experience than any of those guys, and very tricky, very awkward, very unorthodox. So the way I look at this fight to me is when it comes to Berinchyk, what does he need to do? I think Berinchyk needs to move laterally as much as possible, do what he does, feinting, shifting his body, throw off Keyshawn's timing, also step in that time, smother his punches, do those old school tricky things he does to throw off Keyshawn's timing. You don't want him to get a good rhythm. Try to Keyshawn is good at fighting off the back foot. He can fight off the back foot and fight very comfortably doing it. So I wouldn't be surprised if Berinchyk is coming in and he's seeming like he's being the aggressor, really, but he's not going to just recklessly get Keyshawn to try to lunge in and time you on the way in and counter. Just pick your spots, keep it moving. Don't exit going straight out, and don't stay in a pocket for too long. I know Berinchyk at times shows a little dog in him, likes to trade. I think that's where he will be leaving himself open to get countered. So I think he really needs to box and move and circle and try to turn Keyshawn, use those angles, all right, and just box and move. Whereas Keyshawn, keep that space. When this guy charges in, step back, try to time the uppercut, while he's on the way in, stab him to the body. That's one thing. These guys like Berinchyk, Usyk, Lomachenko, they like to get in and engage, and throw their combinations. They'll shoot the left hand and then they'll follow up with a combo. you got to go and work the body when he gets in. Keep him at bay. You're the taller guy, you got the longer reach. Stab him to the body on the outside, and when he gets in, when he exits, let him exit with a body shot. You know what I mean? Let him exit, throw a hook to the body. Make him not comfortable with getting in your space. Take those quick step backs, pop, pop, catch him coming in, leave, let him leave on the way out with a shot. He is the older guy, and I don't want to base everything on age because these guys are great cardio wise. Berinchyk is a volume puncher. He could be a volume puncher too. And even though he's 36, I'm sure he's going to be in phenomenal shape. Again, Emmanuel Navarrete, big puncher, high volume puncher, was able to go punch and punch with him. You know what I mean? And outwork him at times. So you got to keep the guy, you got to go to the body. When there's space, stab him to the body. Just keep touching him to the body. Make him uncomfortable, make him gas out, and start doing that early so you can pay dividends, you know, and then do the better work in the half in the in their half of this fight here. You know what I mean? Um, Another thing, Keyshawn's speed is a little underrated. As I was watching some of his stuff, his counters, and especially on the inside, those short shots, very powerful. Those short right hands on the inside, especially because he's fighting a southpaw. He's good at rolling punches and countering, catch and shooting. He got some good pull counters. Those shots are, he's good at changing the speed of his punches. And I noticed that, like, I probably noticed it before, but like, being that I've been watching some of this stuff this past week, he's very, like, he has sneaky speed. Not enough people talk about his speed, but he kind of surprises like his opponents with it. And I noticed that like this week. And to me, I think overall he has the advantages. He has the experience. He's fought southpaws, um, and he's part of camp with two of the best southpaws out there. Terrence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson. He's constantly doing rounds with these guys and others. And Bomac is a phenomenal coach, and I think he's going to be ready for Berinchyk and whatever he brings. I'm confident that Keyshawn is going to win this fight. I'm just not sure how, because I don't know how durable Berinchyk really is. Keyshawn has gone a distance with fighters that I thought he was going to stop, because he was dominant in the fight, but he just couldn't put him away. This is a championship fight, and I think both of them are going into the toughest test to date. So I think they're going to be in the best shape that they could be at this time. But I don't think Keyshawn has peaked yet. Whereas Berinchyk, I think he's at the best he could ever be. I don't know how Keyshawn wins, but I think Keyshawn is capable of hurting him and possibly stopping him. But if he doesn't, I can see it go the distance. Um, if I place any bets, I'll think about it. I'll let you guys know. I'll probably post it on Instagram or something, but I'm not sure where I'm at, but I am confident that Keyshawn Davis is going to win this fight. Also, now put this out there. I think this is a tougher fight than people are giving Berinchyk credit for. So don't be surprised if you see Keyshawn get hit more than you normally see him get hit. I know when fighters like Keyshawn, who's coming, he's has a great run right now, a lot of momentum. A lot of people are looking up to him to being like a future, like pound for pound fighter potentially. But I know when fighters get hit a certain amount of times that they're not used to seeing them get hit, they get overly criticized. He might get hit a lot in this fight because he's fighting a guy that's kind of awkward, you know. Do I think it's gonna have any major effect on him? No, but I do think the fight is gonna be a tough fight and tougher than what we've seen recently. But I think as the fight goes on, Keyshawn's gonna figure out and he's gonna gain the momentum. And I think once Keyshawn starts walking him down, that's when Denys is gonna really have some issues. Okay. Um, Anyway, I got Keyshawn winning this. Not sure how. It can go either way. I can see the stoppage. I can see the decision win. But Keyshawn is winning this fight to me. You know, I don't see. I see Denys giving him some issues. I don't see Denys like beating him. You know. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Again, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoy the content, and please share the video if you can. I will see you guys on the next video. Take care. Peace.